design.
What is, I'm sure everybody around here knows that when you compare amplifiers to amplifiers, most of the time, the difference between amplifiers is so limited, so little. Very possible, sometimes you make an A/B switch, and you go between the two. They are so close. You can sometimes say, wow, they all almost sound the same. And sometimes it's really true. Amplifiers sounds much closer to each other than the headphones. The headphones are way far away from each other. You put Sennheiser, you hear one kind of sound. You put radios, you hear another kind of sound. You put 701, another kind of sound. Sony, another sound. ET880 by Bayer, it's another sound. I've got about 20 headphones, from Qualia to R10 to Sennheisers to 701s, and name it, I got it. In-ear monitors, from Ultimate Ears to ES2s, UM2s, and EFP 500, they all sound different than each other, way different than each other. There are different flavors. I can say this is better than that one. But when you come to reality and you compare price to performance of the headphones, you can never, ever, to my ears and in my research, beat HD600. It is the most balanced headphones to my ears. If your amp is really balanced in all three spectrum of sound, HD600 is the headphones that I do all my research with and I do all my design with. The 650, I listen to it, I never own it, I have an HD600, but I don't have 650 because every time I hear 650 on my amps, that is, of course I'm talking about to my ears, I found 650 is exaggerated in the bottom end. It's too much of the upper or lower mid has too much of the upper low, and that makes the bottom end a little bit too heavy in comparison to the mid and highs. Now, 701 is a nice headphone, but it is like a gorgeous girl with very, very thin, about 78 pounds in weight. When I married my wife, she was 98, and that was perfect. So I would call the Sennheiser 115 pounds gorgeous girl. Now, of course, you can be the sound of R10, especially the serial numbers after 1000. But if I use that headphones in my design, I would be ruining every amp I would come out with. So my ears are accustomed to HD600, and that is my standard of building the amps.
Not that I pick a 115-pound beautiful woman out of my listening room. But this brings an interesting corollary to the group, which is that if there's a point of diminishing differences between headphone amplifier models, and given that there's such a wide variation in tonal balance among reference quality headphones, much less the rest of them out there, what does this mean to you guys as designers designing headphone amplifiers? Do you have to take this wide range of response into consideration when designing your products?
And there's a point in time when you can design an amplifier and you reach an aha moment. This is perfect. This sounds perfect. I can't find any flaws. And then you go from an electrostatic headphone to a dynamic, back and forth, completely different headphones. They sound almost the same. That's when you know you've designed a really good amplifier. But, you know, so how do you really define where? So your question was, how do you?
Well, if there's such a wide variation in headphones as your transducers, what problems does this pose to you as the designer of amplifiers that's made to drive products that are so inherently different?
When you design the right amplifier, you allow a little bit of tunability to the amplifier, different headphones, different tubes, and so forth. However, an amplifier that's designed right will actually drive just about any headphone, right? By being able to follow, drive any of those products properly.
I think there's a lot of variation though in what kind of headphone you have. If you have a solid state headphone amplifier that's got no output impedance, then it doesn't care, and it should sound kind of the same. When you start talking about two headphone amplifiers, especially as the output impedance crawls up, the actual impedance of the headphone makes a huge difference. You know, I did the first headphone amp that I was selling. You know, it had a relatively high output impedance. It sounded great with Sennheisers. It didn't sound so good with radios. You know, and it's okay for me. I didn't like radios. It gets to the point where you could really, if you wanted to do the absolute best thing, you should tune an amplifier to a bigger headphone. I mean, if I, even a solid state amp, if I set up a solid state amp to my liking on HD 600s, I probably wouldn't like it on radios. But yeah, I think in the ideal world, they should really be matched together. You can do it somewhat with tube equipment by changing tubes. I think that's why tube rolling is so popular, you know, partly because these guys are just neurotic and they just want to switch tubes. But part of it is you do change the sound and it depends on what you're driving. So.
But surely there has to be some appeal to being able to change the nature of your amplifier with a lot less outlay than a new amplifier.
True. You know, I'd like to start with the effect then.
Okay.
I disagree. Yeah, I disagree with Ray. I don't think that while I do think that headphones sound more different from each other, I think it's because headphone technology needs to mature still, and they're still really getting it right. I mean, in my opinion, the first really good sounding headphones were the Sennheiser 560s, and before that, they were all honky one way or another.
But what about loudspeakers, right? Loudspeakers have been out forever and they all sound good.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And I buy that. They will always sound more different than the amplifier, and there's no doubt about it. But I think the human listening system is exquisite, and I think that there is things that can be heard and appreciated that take significant amounts of time to hear and appreciate them. And so I disagree that you can go around, throw a switch on a switch box and say, oh, these things sound the same, because on first blush they do. But over time, they'll wear on you differently, and your brain will adapt differently to those subtle cues, subtle sounds. And so I think the premise of the question is fundamentally wrong, just to start with. And then there's all the factors of features and functionality and what's going to be useful where you are, you know. So I think there's room for headphone amplifiers to continue to design a variety of headphone amps. And I think there is differences between headphone amps.
Well, okay.
Headphones are different, one to each other. And there are big difference from headphone and headphone. This is true. I don't agree to who thinks that, to who won't find the right combination between headphone, amplifier, cable, a poor headphone, a poor amplifier, a poor cable, but all combined made a magic solution.
Synergy.
It's the synergy. It is right if one will drive left and the other will drive right, the car goes straight, but I don't believe that anybody go to adjust the car in this way. So, and it's right that if the headphone is too bassy and the amplifier is dry, okay, the combination is maybe correct, but not equilibrated. But it's much better to have the addition of two positive values than two error with opposite phases.
Okay.
This is, I think we agree.